Welcome to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zynergy, your roadmap to a secure and confident retirement. Each week, we explore strategies, stories, and planning frameworks designed to help you navigate the complexities of life after work. From tax planning to investments, income strategies to risk management, our goal is to give you the clarity and confidence you need to make informed decisions. But retirement isn't just about the numbers. It's also about lifestyle, purpose, and peace of mind. We're here to guide you through both the financial details and the personal dimensions of this next chapter. Let's chart today's course.
Hello and welcome back to our Retirement GPS podcast. We're glad that you're with us for episode 32, and we're going to stick with our theme of retirement questions answered. And today we're going to be talking about the pension decision. So this is a question that we get a lot here, and we've heard from our listeners is, do we recommend the lump sum or the monthly income? And to guide you through that very, very important question today will be myself, your host, Ryan Zaharchek, certified financial planner and president of Zynergy Retirement Planning.
And we appreciate you listening. This is Zane Belsack, your associate planner here at Zynergy.
And we want to start by kind of giving you an understanding of effectively what we're going to be talking about today. And this is the pension benefit that not as many people have today as they did maybe 30 years ago, but we still see quite a bit. I'm going to say about 30% of the people we work with have some sort of pension defined benefit plan from their employer. And then they have options of, how do I collect the pension? Do I collect it as a lump sum? Do I take it as a monthly pension check, stream of income annuity? What about joint filing for my spouse? Do I take the 100% joint? Do I have 75 or 50? So these are a lot of questions that come up. It can be a bit of a technical discussion. So I'm going to try to keep it as plain English for you as possible so that you understand what we're talking about. But please, if you do have questions, make sure you're reaching out to us. Make sure you're asking us questions. You can reach out to us at info@zynergyretirement.com. Ask your questions, and either we'll answer them directly back to you if it's a personal question, or we'll add it as an additional podcast in the future. Let me start with a story like we like to do. We'll tell you a story about somebody we've actually worked with. We're going to change the names to protect the innocent, as we always do. But the couple we're going to call Mary and John. And they both actually had pensions, which is really rare. You know, we've seen it before. I had a nurse and a teacher, actually. The teacher had a pension and the nurse had a pension. And this one is different, but they also have pensions, both of them. Mary, she liked the idea of the lump sum for the flexibility. She wanted the cash in her pocket. She wanted to know it's hers no matter what. If she were hit by a car tomorrow, she wanted to know that cash would go to her kids. But Paul really liked the idea of the monthly check. He liked that security to know that check was coming in every month, come hell or high water. If things went really, really south in the economy or in the stock market, he's got that peace of mind to know that check's going to come, a direct deposit into his account. So here's what we did. We talked through, a lot of the variables that go into this decision, and we talked about what are the other guaranteed income sources that they have, specifically Social Security. And what we decided to do was we came up with a blended plan of letting Mary take her lump sum and roll that into her IRA, which is extremely important, not to just take it as a distribution to her checking account, so that she had the flexibility, she had the cash, and we could invest that so that it would grow over time and she would have that lump sum for her heirs or for a big purchase down the line. But John would take the joint and 100% survivor pension benefit for the stability. Having a married couple, they really kind of had the best of both worlds. They were able to sort of mitigate the risk, right? Because we don't know what the right answer is. We don't know the right decision until we know how long you're going to live. And if you can't tell us the date you're going to die, then we can't tell you what the exact right answer is. So we have to do our best to mitigate the risks. And that's what we're going to talk about here, is we're going to talk about the pros and cons of both of those decisions and really what makes the most sense.
Is the crystal ball not working?
Crystal ball is foggy as usual, unfortunately. So, I wish I had it, man. I'll tell you, I'd be sitting on a beach with my laptop somewhere.
I can tell you exactly when and exactly how you should take your pension. Just tell me when you're going to die.
Just tell me when you're going to die. I say that to my people with Social Security all the time because they're like, when's the best time to take Social Security? I go, well, just tell me what day you're going to die, and then I'll do the math for you. And they laugh. But clearly, we don't know that, right? We can't tell for sure. I don't know if you're going to get hit by a car tomorrow or you're going to be the oldest person in existence and live to 123, because those two things will affect your decision dramatically. Since we don't know that, we have to go off of probabilities and what are the risks we're willing to retain and what are the risks that we're willing to pass off. So let's talk about these basics and this pension and what is it and what does it mean. So the pension is, like we said, a defined benefit plan that is paid in by your employer. And you typically have two main choices when retirement comes and you're going to collect your pension. You have a monthly stream of income, which is a guaranteed paycheck for life. It's important to understand that's for life. It's not for 30 years. It's not for 10 years. It's for life. So if you happen to die in 5 years, your pension is gone. There are some riders occasionally on a pension that'll give you like a 10-year guarantee or 10-year term certain. Typically that means a lower monthly payment. But just assume for the case of simplicity here in our exercise, we're going to talk about a basic annuity, a basic pension, which is life guaranteed income with no riders associated with it. And again, it means if you're hit by a car in a couple of years, you're done. Your pension's over. It also means if you live to 120, that pension is going to continue to pay out for, if you're retiring at age 60, that's 60 years of pension.
That's a long time with a pension. Yep.
A lot of pension money right there. And, certainly probably going to be better than the lump sum, although there's still no guarantee of that. You also have the joint survivor option. So if you're married, what does that mean? Well, if I take the single life pension, that means I'm going to get the most benefit. And what I say by the most benefit is the most monthly income is going to come to me. And I'm just going to use a simple example. Let's say it's $3,000 a month. I'm going to be guaranteed $3,000 a month for the rest of my life. Now, if I'm single, that's not a problem because if I die, who am I trying to protect? But if I'm married, I want to protect my spouse. And if I die and I'm collecting $3,000 a month, now she doesn't have $3,000 a month of income. That just disappears like Kaiser Soze. It's gone. And what we want to do is make sure that that doesn't happen if we are married or have a spouse. There are ways to protect it. Some people will take the larger benefit and then go buy life insurance or something like that. We tend not to do it. We find the premiums are too expensive to justify it, but that is a program that some people engage in. What we like to do is go with a 100%, 75%, or 50% joint survivor annuity on the pension. So the 100% is going to be the biggest reduction in your monthly income. But if you pass away in an untimely death at a relatively young age and your spouse lives a long time, they're going to get the same pension benefit. If we had a $3,000 pension for a single individual and now we go to the 100%, that benefit may be reduced down to $2,400 a month from $3,000. Okay, so it's $600 a month less, which is significant, but it's going to be as long as both me or my spouse, whoever of us lives the longest, which can be really, really valuable, especially to your spouse. So $2,400 a month. If I'm hit by a car in a year and my spouse lives to 95, she keeps that $2,400 a month the entire time. 75% pension on the joint survivor. This is the one we actually typically recommend because what this does is it still reduces your benefit, not quite as much, but it also reduces the benefit to your spouse if you were to die first or die early. So in this case, let's talk through why we recommend this one. If it was a $3,000, again, for a single life, now the 75% benefit may be $2,600 instead of $2,400. So it's a big reduction, but not as big as the 100% survivor. You're getting an extra $200 a month, and it's as long as both of you live. So if one of you were to pass away, the other one would then have a 75% reduction. If your spouse dies, you keep the $2,600 a month, okay? Because that stays with you as long as you live. If you die, your spouse then gets 75% of that $2,600 a month. I'm not quick enough on the math to do it that quick, but let's just say it's a reduction down to $1,800. It's probably pretty close. Now your spouse is going to get $1,800 a month instead of the $2,600, which is a pretty significant reduction, but not so much that she can't live comfortably and continue to live in retirement. So that's what we're talking about is what that 75% reduction is. It's a higher monthly benefit as long as you're alive, but once you pass away, your spouse gets 75% of it. Now, if we're thinking about that logically, the reason why we recommend it is, number one, it is a higher monthly benefit while you're young and able to enjoy it together. The second thing is, when one of you passes away, the monthly expenses are reduced. Now, we know property taxes aren't going to be cut in half, right? You still have to pay for the same house. We know electric bill is not going to be cut in half. You still got to heat the house, whether there's one or two people in it. But we know things like travel, we know things like clothes, we know things like food are going to be dramatically reduced, probably cut in half, because now someone's traveling by themselves instead of two people traveling together. So the need for annual expenses is reduced. It's not reduced by half, but 75% is about right.
You're biting the bullet now, so your spouse can still get some kind of income after you pass. So, the trade-off is pretty good depending on how long both of you live.
That's exactly right. Now, if you do have a relatively large investment account, if you do have relatively large Social Security benefits, then you might want to look for the 50% joint survivor. It works the exact same way. So again, in our example, you're actually going to get, again, another higher benefit. So if the single life was $3,000, the 50% joint survivor may be something like $2,800, which is, again, pretty substantial benefit and not much of a reduction from the $3,000. But if you were to pass away, your spouse would only get half of that. That math I can do. That's only $1,400. So, really not too bad, not terrible from a reduction standpoint. And that's how we can think about those things. I do think that's a pretty substantial reduction for your spouse. Not that they can't live off of it and not that they wouldn't still be relatively comfortable, but they would have to have other assets and other things set up in place properly to make sure that that's the case. If we have people that have relatively large whole life insurance policies, they know the spouse is going to get that they've had for a lot of years, then the 50% joint survivor may be the way to go because the whole life insurance makes up for the difference that they would be losing. So there's a lot of moving parts there that we want to think through, but we do think about, if we do take the monthly stream of income, which one is the most appropriate if we're married. And then, of course, the other option is the lump sum. The lump sum is a rollover. It should be a transfer. It should be a direct transfer to an IRA so that it's not taxed. Otherwise, they're going to withhold 20%, and it's going to be as if it were income to you in that year. In that case of a $3,000 monthly pension, you may have a lump sum of something like $700,000, which is pretty significant. That's a lot of money that you would be able to take today, put it in your pocket, and do whatever you want with it. You can take it and make big purchases. You can buy your kid a car. You can, I don't know if that's really the main goal. You can pay for your grandkids' education, which can tend to be a pretty substantial goal that people have. But it's yours. It's yours to do with what you want. It's important to know that your pension, if you do keep it as a stream of income, it is guaranteed. It is guaranteed. It's not guaranteed by the federal government, which means there's risk. If we're guaranteed by the federal government, we tend to see that as risk-free, at least from a default standpoint. If it's guaranteed by the state or another insurance company or some sort of organization, those organizations can fail. A state can go bankrupt and not back up in the entirety of the thing that they're insuring. So typically plans are backed by the state, and the PBGC, which is the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, it's a reinsurer basically of pensions. And again, in a really, really bad environment, like a Great Depression where a lot of pensions are defaulting, we could see a situation where they actually run out of funds. Maybe they go default, they go bankrupt, and now they're only guaranteeing pennies on the dollar of your pension. So it is a guarantee, it's a reinsurance, but we always want to understand what is the ultimate fallback risk. Obviously, if we take the lump sum, it's money in our pocket, we know it, but if we're investing it, we run the risk of the guarantee of what we invested in. So, there's risks in every way. Let's talk about what drives these choices. What is the right choice for me, but what is the drivers I should be thinking about? Well, the first one is always longevity and health, right? If you are in poor health, we have plenty of people that are actually retiring that we've worked with because of their health, right? They were diagnosed with cancer, stage 3, stage 4 cancer. Clearly, that's a problem in the sense that longevity now is a real concern. And it's a practical and mathematical concern that we want to account for. And in that case, we'd almost certainly say we're going to take the lump sum so that we have that money in pocket. Survivor needs. So what are we going to do based on what survivors are we trying to take care of? If we have a spouse, we want to be thinking about, what is our spouse, how is our spouse handled? Inflation. Most pensions today that we work with do not have a cost of living adjustment. What I mean by that is if you're collecting that $3,000 pension starting tomorrow, guess what? In 30 years, it's still going to be $3,000. And if our property taxes today are $10,000, and in 30 years they're $35,000, that $3,000, it now looks like it's losing value over time against purchasing power. And that's really what we want to be sensitive to. Interest rates are a factor, right? In a high rate environment like we've had a couple years ago where interest rates spiked up to 6 and 7%, it makes the lump sum feel smaller because the annuity check at that point tends to be higher. So we always want to compare it to what is the distribution of the annuity versus taking the lump sum and maybe going out and going to get a private annuity, especially if rates are higher. We could probably do better in the open market. Risk, comfort, and behavior. So this is a question of eating well versus sleeping well. You want to make sure that you're getting good night's sleeps in retirement. And if you're going to agonize over market volatility and open up your account every single day and look at the fluctuations, I don't know if rolling up over the lump sum is right for you because it's going to create a lot of angst in your life. We will have periods of market volatility. We will have periods of, I don't even like to use the word volatility because that assumes, volatility means both up and down. Nobody cares about up volatility, right? Everybody cares about downward volatility.
I'd be fine if it was always up.
Yeah. Everybody likes the 30% up volatility. Nobody likes the 30% downward volatility. So that's what we're concerned about, is those market drawdowns, those pullbacks. If that's going to cause you to lose sleep and, develop angina, we don't want to be dealing with that. So that may be an idea where we want to start looking more at the annuity payment over time. Other income sources such as Social Security, annuities, rental income. If we don't have a lot of other income sources, specifically guaranteed income sources, then we really might want to consider taking the annuity just to know that we have that certainty there, that we've got that stream of income coming in at some level. Most people I work with collect Social Security. In fact, I would say 99% of people are eligible for it. So that tends not to be an issue. There's always that fallback. But the question is, how much is the right amount? Next, we want to look at taxes and Medicare. So, of course, adding on to your AGI. If you take it as a rollover, you don't have to distribute it till you reach required minimum distribution age, which is anywhere from 73 to 75, depending on your birthday, which means you can kind of control your income for a little while. When you take it as an annuity, you don't. Your income is out of your hands at that point, at least for the most part, because you've got that stream of income coming in. And then lastly is legacy. It is important to think about, like, how are my heirs affected? You may not care as much. And I'll be honest with you, most people we work with kind of say, listen, I want to do what's best for me and my spouse and our retirement. My kids will get what they get and they don't get upset. So, I'm not really planning for that, but I want to leave them something if I can. But we want to make sure we're taken care of first. And that's, very understandable, very logical. But some people have very definite ideas on what they want to leave to their heirs. And if you take an annuity, a stream of income over time, you're not leaving anything to your heirs unless there's a guaranteed rider on that. And effectively what that means is you take that stream of income as a joint 100% survivor, and 5 years later you're both killed in a car accident, your heirs get nothing. Your heirs get nothing out of that pension. If you take the lump sum and you invest it and draw on it over time, they will always get that balance of what's in that account when the time comes. So something to consider, and it can be a big consideration for sure.
These are all important points. I feel like most people that come to us with pensions they're always in the mindset of, I want the lump sum, I want it all right now, or I want the 100% and I want the income immediately.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I feel like it's a very polarized subject. Very few people say I agonize over it and say I don't know what to do. Most people say they really feel strongly they want one way or the other. And I think that's okay. I think it's kind of okay because it's going with your gut. I just want to make sure they're thinking through all the logical implications of either route. But, a lot of this, again, there is no right answer because we don't know when they're going to die. So they really kind of have to go with what is the right answer for them. And if they're going with, hey, I definitely want the annuity, I definitely want to, that I'm getting that stream of income every month, that's probably because they have a little bit of angst over investing it themselves and making sure that that grows over time. And if they want to get the lump sum, definitely, and they want to make sure they get that, it's probably because they're concerned about their legacy or they're concerned about inflation, and they want to make sure that's taken care of. So they're making the right decisions for the right reasons. We talk it through and make sure that they're clear about that. We typically don't make a strong recommendation one or the other. We give them the pros and cons and let them make the decision that's right for them, for sure. Let's talk about the trade-offs here because there are significant trade-offs, and we kind of touched on them. But let's talk about the monthly pension, right? So the stream of income. The pros here, number one, we've talked about lifetime paycheck. If you live to 120, that money's coming in no matter what. And as long as you keep living, you're going to get that income. It does have that optional survivor benefit if you pick the 175 or 50 joint. So you'll know both you and your spouse are taken care of. There's no portfolio risk or sequence of returns risk that we talked about in prior episodes. And what that means is we don't have to worry about market volatility. We don't have to worry that, I'm going to get an 8% return, but the first 3 years will be negative 20% each year after year. It's a relatively simple program. You get a check in the mail or a direct deposit into your account and it's done. Of course, the cons are, the trade-off to that is there is no inflation adjustment. And your costs will go up and your income will not. And I say that, with a grain of salt. Some of them do have a COLA associated with it. It's rare. I see about 10 to 20% of the pensions we deal with have a COLA associated with it. That's a big value add if there is a COLA. Typically, it means you're going to get a lot less of a monthly payment up front, but it is a big value add to have that COLA because it reduces that trade-off, that risk. Less liquidity, right? So that money's not yours. And if you do need $50,000 to buy a car, to take a big trip, or to buy a second home, you're not going to have it, right? It's not going to come because it's coming as a stream of income. You can go borrow against the stream of income, but you're paying interest then. And then you, of course, want to have that legacy to leave to your kids or grandkids or whoever your heirs are if you don't take that lump sum, if you take the stream of income. The choice is irrevocable. So essentially, once you make your election and the money comes into your account, you can't put it back and say, I want a stream of income, because there's no free look, right? If you make the choice and then a year from now the market crashes, can't put it back in and say, oh, I changed my mind.
I didn't mean to do that.
Oopsies. Lower total if you pass early, right? So we talked about that. If you're killed in a car accident in a couple of years, or both of you and your spouse, then you're definitely going to need a lot less money than if you took the lump sum. And those are the things that we really want to kind of take into account. Let's talk about the lump sum and the pros and cons there. The pro for the lump sum tends to be the cons for the monthly pension, but you get full control and liquidity, right? It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. Control and options in financial planning is really powerful. It's one of the reasons we don't love locking people into like long-term annuities or whole life insurance contracts and things like that. It's because you lose control of that money. You lose control of what it's invested in. You lose control of the flexibility there. Same thing here with, when taking a pension, you lose control of what you can do with it. And if your life changes and decisions change, you can't change it. It's too late once you elect the annuity. Legacy potential, so having that lump sum means you can leave that to your kids. And if it's invested properly and drawn properly over time, it should grow, which means it's going to be a much larger, or it should be a much larger lump sum over time. Flexible withdrawals. So although we probably would want to set it up as a stream of income, if you do have a big cash need because there's an emergency that you didn't plan for regarding yourself or your children, you can pull from it. A lot of people will take a big lump sum and pay, prepay for an assisted living facility or like a continuing care facility where in the beginning it's not assisted living, but it phases in over time. And those could be big chunks of money that you can put down, and this is one way to do that. You can even sort of pair that lump sum with a custom annuity later if you do change your mind. So you can take it now and then go buy a private annuity if interest rates spike for some reason and now the annuity numbers are so much better and you want to do that. And you can plan to increase your withdrawals with inflation, which is a big one. We will be able to, ultimately take larger withdrawals down the line to keep up with cost of living. Of course, the downside and the trade-off is that most likely you'll have less income in the early years because in order to increase your income over time, you have to take a lower distribution. So typically when we model out the pension versus the lump sum, the lump sum does grow over time, especially if we're getting the returns we expect, but you're getting a lower income initially. The break even is about 15, 16 years. And after that, you're getting a much higher income because you're increasing that lower income to inflation each year. And it might be a little bit stifling in the early years. It's going to be really valuable in the later years. And then it really comes down to what's your priority. Do I not want to risk at all having to go back to work when I'm 85? Or do I want to make sure I enjoy my life and I travel and things like that in my 60s? And can I mitigate those risks? Obviously, longevity risk. So if you're collecting a pension over 40 or 50 years, that's going to be a much larger total sum of money than you would have gotten from the lump sum. So important to think about that. Discipline is required. If you have this lump sum and you go out and you spend it all in the first 10 years, you're not going to have anything in later years, and that's going to be a big problem. And future RMDs will potentially start to lose control of what that income is, especially if it's in an IRA. And then, of course, we always have the risk of bad timing in the markets. So it's 1999. We take the lump sum. We're like, great, the market's booming. I put it in, and for 10 years, my portfolio does nothing. We certainly would have been better taking the annuity if it's 1999. So hard to time those things, right?
No, it's definitely hard to time those things. I agree.
All right, so let's kind of talk about how to put this into place. What are our action steps here? Number one, go get some quotes on what your options are from your annuity. If you're not yet going to retire or you're still far off from retirement, just hold off. You don't have to make this decision now. This is one of those decisions you make within 6 months or far less of retiring. A lot of times we like to actually make it 2 to 3 months before we retire. So we have final numbers. Get your single life, your 50, 75, 100% survivor, and then, of course, your lump sum. Get a side-by-side after-tax income breakdown of what am I going to need and how are both of these plans going to fit into those income needs. If I don't need that much income and I can take the lump sum and live on a little bit less because it's still more than I need anyway, then the lump sum seems like a really good fit there. If I need a lot more income in the early years and I'm barely making ends meet, then I'm probably going to be looking at the pension over time. If you're considering the lump sum, make sure that you draft your IRA income plan. How is it going to be invested? Where am I going to draw my income from? How much is that income going to be? How am I going to rebalance it over time? We talked about that on the last episode, so make sure that you listen to that and get that squared away. Coordinate with your CPA to get your withholding set up properly for income tax purposes. Work with your planner on your IRMA thresholds, Roth conversion windows, all of those things that may come into play now if we do take the lump sum. And then just document your decision. Which options, why does it fit? Write it sort of all out so that you have your plan in place and that you're ready to go.
I think, and you mentioned this before, I think it's really beneficial to just really have all the options side by side so that you can look at it and really just determine what's right for me. Do I need the income? How's my cash flow looking? Do I have heirs that I want to give this money to? What's my risk in the market looking like? All these factors are important to consider.
That's why it's such an individualized decision. And, like most things in financial planning, that's why I kind of hate rules of thumb. I hate when somebody comes to me and says, I talk to my coworkers and they all say the lump sum is the right option. And I'm like, your coworkers don't know you. How do they know, right? And that happens in a lot of areas of finance when people sit down with us. So looking at your specific situation and how it affects you and your household, your spouse, your heirs, that's what we care about. Rules of thumb just don't account for those things. Hopefully you liked this show, and if you did, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure that you follow us so you get future episodes. Love for you to give us a 5-star rating. That would be fantastic so that more people find this great content. If you think this applies to somebody that you know, forward them this podcast and say, hey, think about the lump sum or the annuity from your pension. Listen to this podcast and make a good decision that's right for you. And we really appreciate you guys listening. We're building some great momentum with our listeners all across the country, all across the world. And we hope you keep learning and keep planning.
Thank you for listening to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zynergy. To explore today's topic further, visit our blog mile markers at zynergyretirement.com/blog, where we offer detailed strategies, examples, and downloadable tools to support your retirement journey. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Zynergy Retirement Planning for weekly insights, checklists, and planning reminders. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone planning for their future. Until next time, keep navigating toward a confident retirement. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as investment, legal, or tax advice. Listeners should consult their own financial, tax, and legal advisors before making any decisions. Zynergy Retirement Planning is a registered investment advisor located in Red Bank, New Jersey.